let's set the scene. It's the off season and you are crushing training. The numbers on the bar just keep going up and up and up. The Bronco time keeps dropping and you're feeling faster than ever. The start of the season rolls around and you are playing lights out. You're running through people, you're making big shots, and you're stepping up as the player you know you can be. But there comes that turning point in the season where all of a sudden the numbers in the gym are not creeping up like they used to. You're feeling like you've lost that edge on the pitch, and no matter how much rugby you play, it feels like you can't cope with the demands of an 80-minute game no more. And halfway through the season, you're wondering where that player was from the start of pre-season. Well, this is the same trap that I fell into year after year as a rugby player, and it's the same mistake that I see a lot of other rugby athletes making that kills their progress. It's why in this video today, I'm going to be breaking down exactly what that mistake is, why it's happening, but most importantly, how you can avoid making this same mistake with your training so you can stay fast, strong, fit and robust through the full 33 weeks of the season. Let's get it. Firstly, to get clear on this mistake that you're making, you're simply going to have to understand one important word, and that is to do with programming. It's called periodization. Now, some coaches may argue that periodization isn't needed and is something that everyone overthinks, but if we go back to the definition of what periodization is, you will see that it is actually everything for athletic performance. Now, periodization simply stands for the planned manipulation of training variables to manage stress, to optimize performance and manage fatigue. AKA is simply how you plan training to maximize performance and recovery, which is exactly what you need to do if you want to progress and step up as the go-to player. So now we know what periodization is. What do we actually periodize throughout our training to make it effective? Well, it comes down to three things. We're looking at volume, which is simply how much work you do. We're looking at intensity, which is how hard that work is. And we're looking at the targeted training quality that will be chasing that block, whether it be strength, speed, power, conditioning. Now, if you get this right, you will start to notice that your performances will keep improving. You'll keep getting stronger, you'll keep getting faster, you'll keep getting more powerful, and you will make more progress. But if you get this wrong, like the majority of athletes do, you'll peak too early and you'll not be able to keep up with the demands of the game for the full 33 weeks. And that is because you're falling into the trap of conventional periodization. Now, this is why periodization is actually getting a bad rap in the S&C world, because the periodization model that you are using no longer suits the needs of a contact athlete that needs to play for 33 weeks of the season. You see, most rugby players fall into the trap of following through a conventional periodization approach, also known as block periodization. And that looks a little bit like this, where all your training at one singular block is designated to a specific quality. So you do a strength block, you then sequence that with a power block, and then once you've done that, you sequence it with a speed block. And the reason why that this was built was because each sequence logically moves on. You develop the foundational force output. You then sequence that with learning how to use that force fast through more power-based exercise. And then you put that to the test with real speed work. And this works very well for track athletes where this was born. But what you've got to realize is that as a rugby player, you don't have the luxury of having one singular competition day, maybe 2 or 3 times a year. You have to compete, like I said, for 33 weeks of the year. But the biggest reason is because you don't get the luxury of sacrificing strength, power, or speed at any given point. You need to be able to display high levels of strength, speed, power, and conditioning concurrently across the course of the season, where this model doesn't allow you to do. In this block of strength, you detrain power. In this block of power, you detrain the previous quality of strength and speed. And then in this speed block, you detrain all of this stuff, which basically means you become an ineffective player. And this is why you start to feel that lull coming into the season, because you need to display all these 3 things at once, and guess what? Your program doesn't allow you to do that. And this is where we use a different way at the Strength Solution. And the Strength Solution way has been built on one important principle. If it's important, it never leaves the program, which means we never stop doing strength work, we never stop doing speed work, we never stop doing power work, and we never stop conditioning 365 days of the year, which poses its own set of challenges. And when athletes hear that they actually have to do everything year round, they get overwhelmed and they make this one simple mistake. They try and run a perfect program for that one quality. So what this looks like is they'll try and do a bodybuilding program to keep on size, they'll be running a 5K program to stay fit, they'll be doing a speed and power program, and they'll be training like a powerlifter to maintain their strength, and they'll be trying to do all this volume but not actually getting anywhere because they're just detraining themselves because they're doing too much that their body can't handle. And this is where the undulating concurrent model steps in. And I know that's quite fancy, so we're going to break it down so you understand exactly how to implement it into your own training today. So the concurrent word means that we're going to train all physical qualities at once. The undulating part is where we get real fancy, and that means we're going to pick one emphasis quality for that block, which is going to give us the biggest bang for our buck. This is normally our weakest link in the chain from a strength, speed, power, or conditioning standpoint, because we want to channel as much into that as making that weak point a strength for ourselves. And what this may look like across a single training block is this. So a single training block always kicks off with understanding what your weak links are so you can actually design an effective program. And if you're not sure of the standards that we face, we've got an 8 minimum standards checklist to see where you stack up, to see whether you need to do more strength, speed, power, or conditioning. But if we was to take an athlete that is very weak, they're very new to training, and they haven't actually done a lot of strength work, there's no point trying to layer a lot of speed and power on for that athlete just because they don't have a big force potential to play with in the first place. So this could be a block of their training where the emphasis quality is strength. We then have a secondary quality of conditioning, which we're building alongside this, and then speed and power are just maintained at a maintenance dose. And what that looks like, if we look at our volume allocation, is the biggest chunk of the pie is going to be attributed towards strength. This means you can make rapid progress in strength, but the beauty of this over the block periodization model, which means that we just purely do strength and neglect these, is that we actually do enough throughout the course of a block, even with this limited volume, to maintain the physical qualities that we got. So what this may look like is 3 strength sessions a week, 1 speed and power session where we tick that off together, and then an extra conditioning top up. This way then, we have built a program that has a minimum effective dose to maintain the physical qualities that we're not that focused on, but a hell of a lot of volume pumped into our weakest link, which means we make rapid progress in that area without sacrificing the others. And that, my friends, is exactly how you step up for 365 days of the year. And then when it no longer becomes an issue for yourself, you just reevaluate with some more testing, see where you stack up against the benchmarks, you create the new program that is reflective of your new needs, which could look a little bit like this. If you've hammered strength for a fair bit, you've got strong, but you've started to neglect your power work because it's not been the big emphasis quality, well, we just switch gears. Rather than focusing fully on the strength, we make power the massive driver of our program. We tick over with extra speed work, and then conditioning and strength is brought down a dose, which means we maintain all the strength quality that we built up in the previous phase, but we also hammer now power and make rapid improvements in that. This means you never lose strength, you never lose speed, you never lose power, and you never lose conditioning, and you never lose out on making improvements on the pitch and becoming that dominant player you know you can be. Now, I know this stuff can be quite tricky, which is why we've got our coaching inquiries link in the bio. Head to that, fill out some details, and we'll see how we can implement this for you. But thanks very much for tuning in. Utilize this when designing your programs, and I promise you, you'll become a freak athlete.